The chamber of the Galactic Council was built for noise. It was shaped to carry voices, arguments, and threats across vast space. That day, it held only silence. Delegates waited for the human response. None came. No ships arrived. No messages followed. For cycles, tension had grown between humanity and the Council. Laws were passed without consent. Borders were tightened. Human warnings were ignored. Still, the Council expected anger. They expected demands or force. Silence was not considered. Silence felt wrong. At first, the silence seemed temporary. A delay. A tactic. But then the reports arrived. Human trade vessels were changing course. Military escorts were pulling back. Shared stations showed declining traffic. Humans were leaving quietly and all at once. Council sensors tracked the movement. Entire human fleets slipped away from joint sectors. No weapons powered up. No shields flared. Engines burned steady and calm. The departure looked practiced, rehearsed, and final. This was not panic. This was decision. A senior counselor demanded explanation. Human embassies were contacted across 100 systems. Every channel returned the same result. Empty halls, cold terminals, flags removed. Records wiped clean except for basic logs. Humanity had vanished from shared space. Some delegates laughed it off. They said humans were emotional. They would return when fear faded. Others felt unease. Humans did not act without reason. Their history showed patience, planning, and endurance. When humans moved together, it meant something serious. Deep in Council archives, old analysts remembered human behavior. Humans rarely shouted. They rarely threatened. When pushed too far, they adapted, withdrew, and prepared. Silence was not weakness. Silence was focus. The chamber felt smaller as this truth spread. Supply coordinators began to report delays. Human-operated relay hubs were offline. Navigation beacons lost calibration. Minor systems drifted out of sync. These were small issues, easily fixed, yet no replacements came. Humans had maintained them for decades. The Council ordered emergency crews to take over. They failed. Human systems were complex, layered, and adaptive. Manuals were incomplete. AI cores rejected foreign commands. What humans built was meant to be used by humans alone. Silence now had weight. In the outer regions, civilian worlds noticed the change first. Human cargo ships no longer arrived. Medical shipments stopped. Repair fleets failed to appear. Quests were sent to the Council, then forwarded to empty human channels. Anxiety spread across sectors. Military observers watched borders once guarded by human patrols go dark. No farewell signals were given. No warnings were left behind. Humans simply removed themselves, like a hand pulled away from a fragile structure, leaving it to test its own strength. A junior counselor finally spoke the fear others avoided. Humans had been everywhere. Logistics, defense, research, crisis response. They were never loud about it. They never asked for praise. They just solved problems before anyone noticed them. The silence was not empty. It was revealing. Every hour without humans exposed another weakness. The galaxy had leaned on them without admitting it. The Council had treated humanity as a resource, not a partner. Now the cost of that thinking emerged. Old recordings were reviewed. Human delegates had warned them. Calm voices had spoken of limits, respect, and shared burden. The Council had voted them down. Power had spoken louder than reason. Now power had no answer for absence. Across shared space, human stations initiated final protocols. Lights dimmed, docking bays sealed.
Automated messages?
Repeated a single line in many languages. Operations concluded, nothing more. No anger, no blame, just an ending. Observers noticed something else. Human systems did not shut down in chaos. They powered down in order. Files were archived, resources reclaimed, even waste was removed. Humanity left nothing useful behind. They took their future with them. The Council called an emergency session. Voices filled the chamber again, but confidence was gone. Accusations flew. No one accepted blame. It all understood the truth forming between words. Humanity had planned this for years, maybe longer. Some asked why now. Analysts offered a quiet answer. Humans had reached a limit. They had given solutions and received control. They had offered loyalty and received restriction. Leaving was not surrender. Leaving was self-respect. Beyond council space, human fleets gathered in deep systems unknown to others. There was no chaos there either. Human commanders spoke little. Orders were clear. Civilians were calm. This was not exile. This was consolidation. Humanity was choosing itself. The silence forced the galaxy to listen. Without human voices, old assumptions cracked. Humans were not loud conquerors or desperate allies. They were builders, protectors, and planners. Their strength was not dominance, but reliability under pressure. The Council finally understood the danger. K, an enemy that shouts can be fought. K, an ally that leaves cannot be forced to return. Humanity had removed its weight from the galaxy. Everything built on that weight now began to tremble. In the quiet chamber, a single truth settled over every delegate. Humans did not need the Council to survive. The Council had needed humans all along. By the time that truth was accepted, humanity was already gone. The Council chamber slowly filled with sound again. Voices returned, sharp and confident. Delegates convinced themselves the crisis had passed. Humanity had left, but no war followed. No fleets attacked. To many, this felt like victory achieved without cost. Council leaders declared stability restored. They claimed humans had overreacted and withdrawn out of pride. Public broadcasts framed the departure as proof of Council strength. Citizens were told the galaxy no longer needed human involvement to thrive. Privately, doubts lingered, but pride was louder. The Council had ruled for centuries. No single species could be essential. Humans were useful, yes, but replaceable. That belief spread quickly, comforting those who feared deeper consequences. Trade ministers reassigned routes once run by humans. They promised faster profits without human oversight. Military planners claimed borders were safer now, free from human caution and restraint. Confidence grew with every unchallenged declaration. The silence from human space continued. No response came to Council announcements. That absence was interpreted as proof. Humans were sulking, nothing more. The Council celebrated unity, blind to the quiet fractures forming beneath their words. The first failures were small. A mining convoy vanished along a former human-patrolled route. Pirates struck with unusual precision. Patrol fleets responded late, lacking human prediction models. Losses were explained away as coincidence. On a core world, a power grid failed for 3 hours. Engineers blamed outdated hardware. No one mentioned that human technicians had maintained it for decades. Repairs took longer than expected. Confidence remained, but cracks widened. Council analysts noticed rising error rates in navigation data. Human-managed calibration nodes were gone. Replacements lacked adaptive correction. Ships drifted off course by fractions that added up to disasters light years away. Reports piled up. Leaders dismissed them. Every system faced adjustment periods. Humanity had made itself seem important by controlling too much. Now the galaxy would learn independence. This narrative was repeated until it sounded like truth. Military exercises revealed deeper problems. Fleet coordination lagged without human AI frameworks. Commands conflicted. Response times slowed. Admirals argued over doctrine once balanced by human logic. Training simulations showed rising casualty projections. Again, excuses followed. These were growing pains. The Council had numbers, resources, and authority. Humans relied on adaptability, not power. Numbers always won in the end, or so the Council believed. Civilians felt the change more sharply. Medical shipments arrived late. Repair drones malfunctioned. Communication delays grew common. Complaints reached planetary leaders, then vanished into Council bureaucracy. Confidence at the top filtered down as denial. Old treaties were revised. With humans gone, influence shifted. Stronger species pushed harsher policies. The balance humans once maintained quietly dissolved. Minor worlds felt pressure but lacked allies to resist. Some counselors remembered human restraint during past crises. Humans had slowed escalation, absorbed losses, and fixed problems without credit. Without them, debates turned aggressive. Decisions were rushed. Consequences were ignored. The Council celebrated the opening of new trade corridors through regions humans once warned against. Profits spiked briefly, then ships failed to return. Navigation hazards humans had mapped resurfaced. Insurance markets collapsed. Still, pride held firm. Humans were cautious to the point of fear. That was the narrative. Their warnings had been exaggerations meant to control others. Now, the galaxy was free from that influence. A senior analyst quietly reviewed old data. Every major disaster avoided in recent centuries traced back to human intervention. Plagues contained, wars cooled, stars stabilized. The pattern was impossible to ignore, but impossible to publish. When the analysts raised concerns, superiors silenced them. Panic was the real threat, they said. Public belief in victory mattered more than uncomfortable truths. Humanity's absence must never look like a loss. Border worlds began to arm themselves. Without human patrols, threats felt closer. Requests for council protection increased. Fleets were stretched thin. Response times worsened. Confident speeches grew louder to cover rising fear. The council issued a declaration. The era of human dependency was over. A new age of unified strength had begun. The message echoed across the galaxy, hollow but reassuring to those who needed to believe it. Deep within abandoned human archives, an automated log recorded council broadcasts. No response was sent. Humanity watched from afar, silent and observant, allowing the galaxy to test its assumptions without interference. Back in the chamber, applause followed the declaration. Delegates congratulated one another. The silence from human space remained unchanged. To the council, it felt like confirmation. History, it marked the height of their mistake. Because confidence built on denial is fragile, the galaxy was about to learn that human strength was never loud power, but quiet support removed only when it was no longer deserved. The fractures did not arrive like explosions. They came as delays, errors, and quiet failures. Systems that once worked without thought now demanded attention. Crews grew tired. Leaders grew irritated. The galaxy felt slower, heavier, less certain. Trade lanes clogged as schedules slipped. Ships waited for clearances that never came. Automated traffic systems misread intent. Human-coded logic had once smoothed these flows. Without it, every decision required debate, and debate cost time. On frontier worlds, power fluctuations became common. Lights dimmed, then returned. Life support stuttered for seconds too long. Engineers patched problems by hand, unaware that humans had been preventing these failures years in advance. Pirate activity surged with alarming speed. They moved with knowledge that felt impossible. Routes once protected by human patrol patterns were now exposed. Council fleets responded, but always a step behind, always reacting instead of predicting. Military commanders argued openly. Human tactical models had balanced aggression with restraint. Without them, strategies split into extremes. Some favored overwhelming force, others hesitated. The lack of a steady human hand turned planning into chaos. A convoy carrying medical supplies vanished near a miner system. No distress call was logged. Search teams found wreckage scattered with precision. Analysts realized too late that humans had tracked these threats quietly for decades. Insurance networks collapsed under sudden loss claims. Trade guilds demanded answers. The council offered reassurances instead. Confident speeches grew more frequent as real solutions grew scarce. Citizens felt the gap between words and reality widen. Navigation errors multiplied. Ships arrived days late or missed destinations entirely. Human calibration arrays had adjusted for stellar drift in real time. Council replacements relied on static data, blind to subtle cosmic changes. A research station near a volatile star lost containment. Humans had once stabilized the system with adaptive shields. Now, emergency crews lacked the knowledge to replicate it. The star flared, destroying the station and everyone aboard. Council sessions grew longer and more hostile. Blame replaced planning. Old alliances strained. Humans had once mediated disputes quietly, translating logic between cultures. Without them, misunderstandings escalated into threats. On a small agricultural world, crops failed when climate regulators malfunctioned. Human environmental algorithms had balanced the system delicately. The council sent aid weeks later. Famine took root before help arrived. Reports flooded central archives faster than they could be read. Each one seemed manageable alone. Together, they formed a pattern of collapse. Few dared to say it aloud, but many felt the same thought. Humans had been everywhere. A junior officer uncovered archived logs. They showed human teams intervening hundreds of times across the galaxy, often without formal request. They fixed problems quietly, then moved on. Their absence now made those invisible acts visible. The council suppressed the findings. Public panic would shatter order. They insisted the galaxy was simply adjusting, yet even they felt the strain as emergency votes replaced long-term planning. Border defenses weakened, sensors failed to sync. False alarms drained resources. Real threats slipped through unnoticed. Human early warning systems had once filtered noise from danger. Now, everything screamed at once. Civilian trust eroded. People began stockpiling supplies. Local militias formed. They remembered humans as steady allies, not rulers. Their silence now felt like abandonment, even as some wondered what had driven them away. In distant systems, ancient machines stirred. Long-dormant signals activated. Humans had monitored them quietly, maintaining containment fields. Without oversight, those fields degraded, unnoticed by overstretched council scientists. A fleet sent to investigate never returned. The council classified the loss. Rumors spread faster than facts. Fear replaced confidence on worlds far from the chamber that had declared victory. Some counselors finally admitted the truth in private. Humanity had not just supported the galaxy, humanity had stabilized it. Their strength was not in conquest, but in constant, careful attention. Attempts were made to replicate human systems. They failed. Human designs relied on intuition, adaptability, and ethical limits embedded in code. Council engineers could copy structure, but not philosophy. The fractures widened into breaks. Entire regions became unstable. Trade collapsed between sectors. Old rivalries reignited. The order humans had helped maintain unraveled thread by thread. A lone council analyst compared timelines. Every failure aligned with human withdrawal. The conclusion was unavoidable. This was not coincidence. This was consequence. The analyst submitted the report knowing it would be buried. In human space, observers watched quietly. They saw the same data. They felt no satisfaction, only resolve. They had warned the council. Now they focused inward, strengthening defenses, refining systems, protecting their own future. Human children were taught the truth. They had helped until helping became exploitation. Leaving was not cruelty. Leaving was survival. Their silence was discipline, not indifference. Back in the galaxy, a major hub station lost gravity control. Thousands died before evacuation completed. Investigators found a missing human subroutine labeled simply as failsafe. No one knew how it worked. The council's confidence finally cracked in public. Emergency broadcasts replaced celebration. Promises grew desperate, yet every solution required time the galaxy no longer had. Worlds once critical of humans now spoke their name with regret. Humans had not demanded obedience. They had offered partnership. The council had answered with control. As fractures spread, one truth became clear. Human strength was not loud dominance. It was the quiet ability to hold countless systems together without being noticed. And now that strength was gone. The galaxy stood exposed, divided, and vulnerable, facing a future it had never prepared for, because it had trusted humans to do that work for them. The council finally acted when fear replaced pride. Emergency signals were sent toward human space. Old diplomatic codes were reused. Apologies were drafted. Promises were made. Every message traveled far and returned empty. Humanity did not answer. Delegates argued over tone. Some demanded humility. Others insisted authority remain intact. New messages followed the first. Softer words, urgent pleas, offers of restored rights. Still, the silence held. Human space remained closed and unreadable. Long-range probes crossed former shared borders. They found nothing familiar. Human stations were gone. Orbits were clean. Only faint engine trails remained, fading like ghosts. Humanity had not retreated nearby. It had withdrawn completely. A counselor suggested force. Fleets moved toward human sectors. Sensors detected layered defenses forming far beyond known maps. Human fleets watched but did not engage. Weapons stayed cold. The message was clear. Do not follow. Military analysts realized the truth. Humanity had not fled. They had repositioned into defensible depth. Their silence was confidence. Their restraint was strength. The council ordered the fleets to stand down. Fear spread openly now. Civilian worlds demanded answers. Supply chains were breaking, borders burned, ancient threats awakened. The council tried to reassure them, but even leaders no longer believed their own words. Hidden archives were reopened. Records long ignored surfaced. Humans had cataloged threats beyond council reach. They had delayed them quietly year after year. Now those delays had ended. A council delegation attempted a direct jump toward a known human rally point. Navigation failed mid-transit. Human gravity traps redirected them safely back, unharmed but shaken. Humanity was watching every move. The message was unmistakable. Humans would not be dragged back by guilt or fear. They had chosen distance, not isolation, protection, not revenge. An ancient signal flared near the rim. A machine species long dormant began to wake. Humans had once guarded that region alone. The council scrambled fleets too late. The first system fell in silence. Survivors spoke of precision attacks and impossible coordination. The enemy moved like something prepared, as if resistance had been expected. Humans had known, humans had prepared, and humans had stepped away. Council leaders attempted one final appeal. It's not authority, not bargains. Truth. They admitted failure. They admitted exploitation. They admitted regret. The message was broadcast openly, unfiltered across human frequencies. For the first time, a response came. Not words. A data burst. It contained timelines, warnings, and projections. It showed what humans had held back and for how long. It showed the cost they had carried alone. The final line was simple. We warned you. Nothing else followed. The channel closed. Humanity had spoken once, not to negotiate, but to explain why return was impossible. The council understood then. Humans did not leave in anger. They left because staying would have destroyed them. Silence was not punishment. Silence was survival. The galaxy burned slowly. Systems fell one by one. Resistance was scattered. Coordination failed. The council fought bravely but blindly. Humans had been the eyes, the hands, the patience behind every defense. In human space, life continued. Children studied. Engineers built. Fleets trained. Humanity turned inward, refining technology and unity. They were calm because they had already accepted loss. Human leaders watched the galaxy suffer without joy. They felt sorrow, not guilt. They had given everything they could. They would not sacrifice their future to fix another's pride again. Refugee signals reached human borders. Humanity opened limited corridors. Civilians were rescued. No soldiers were allowed through. Humanity would save lives, not restore power. Council worlds noticed the difference. Humans still cared, but they would not lead. They would not carry the galaxy again. That era was over. As threats closed in, the Council realized the final truth. Humanity was strongest when it chose restraint. And the greatest mistake was assuming that strength was permanent, guaranteed, and owned by others. By the time the Council learned to ask instead of command, to respect instead of rule, humanity was already far ahead, building a future that did not depend on a galaxy that had failed to value them. The truth did not arrive as a revelation, but as a slow collapse of denial. As systems failed and worlds burned, old records resurfaced, not speeches or demands, but quiet logs left behind by humans who never expected thanks. Council historians traced disaster after disaster backward. Each trail ended the same way. A human task force, human algorithm, human sacrifice that stopped catastrophe before it was known. Humanity had been the unseen wall. Humans were never rulers. They held no thrones. They commanded no council seats of power. Yet they were everywhere, fixing problems no one else wanted to face. They did not dominate. They stabilized. Medical archives revealed human cures shared freely, never patented. Diseases stopped spreading before panic began. When asked why, humans answered simply, life mattered more than credit. Military logs showed humans taking the hardest fronts, not for glory, but because they adapted fastest. They studied enemies, learned patterns, and reduced losses for everyone else. They absorbed the cost quietly. Economic systems relied on human forecasting. Humans noticed trends others missed, shortages avoided, collapses delayed, prosperity extended. When humans left, the future arrived all at once, unsoftened. The council had mistaken silence for submission. In truth, humans spoke when words could change things. When words failed, they acted. When action was no longer enough, they left. Captured pirate records revealed fear of humans. Not hatred, not respect, but caution. Pirates avoided routes. Humans watched. They knew humans did not forget patterns. They knew retaliation was precise, not emotional. Human restraint had protected even enemies. It did not escalate when victory was possible if it meant greater harm later. That restraint had been mocked as weakness. Now it was understood as discipline. Council members watched old human debates. Humans argued fiercely among themselves, then presented unity outward. Once a decision was made, they committed fully. Leaving the galaxy had not been sudden. It was unanimous. The truth spread among civilians faster than officials could stop it. Humans had not abandoned them out of cruelty. Humans had left because staying meant endless sacrifice without respect. On many worlds, memorials were built. Not to human leaders, but to unnamed human crews. Engineers, medics, pilots, analysts. Those who saved lives and vanished without ceremony. The council finally admitted fault publicly. It's not a strategy, but as confession. They had treated humanity as a tool. It assumed human endurance was infinite. It was not. In human space, children learned history differently. They were taught cooperation, but also limits. Helping others was honorable. Losing oneself to obligation was not. Humanity chose survival over martyrdom. Human fleets continued refining defenses, not against revenge, but against inevitability. Threats still existed. Humanity would face them alone if required. They trusted themselves now, not fragile alliances. Refugees told stories of human rescue corridors. Humans saved civilians without demanding loyalty. They offered safety, not control. Many wept when turned away afterward, realizing what they had lost. Council strategists studied human doctrine. It was not conquest. It was endurance. Adapt, learn, endure longer than the threat. Humanity had mastered time as a weapon. The galaxy understood too late. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology or fleets, it was moral clarity. They knew when to stand and when to walk away. Some council worlds began changing. Power was shared. Voices were heard. The lesson was written in loss. But change came too slowly to matter now. As ancient enemies advanced, the council fought harder than ever. Braver than before. Bravery without preparation cost lives. Humanity had given them preparation once. In human records, a final note appeared, time-stamped before departure. We hoped they would learn while we were still there. That hope was gone, but humanity endured. Stronger, wiser, and finally free from a burden mistaken for duty. The truth settled across the stars. Humanity was not weak for leaving. Humanity was strong enough to choose itself. And that truth burned deeper than any weapon because it could never be undone. The galaxy had learned the cost of ignoring humanity. Systems once stable fell into chaos. Trade collapsed, fleets scattered, and defenses failed. The council struggled, but their power alone could not replace the hands, minds, and judgment humans had provided. Cities without human oversight faltered first. Infrastructure broke. Hospitals failed. Communications stalled. Leaders scrambled to maintain order, but each solution arrived too late. The galaxy was exposed, vulnerable, and desperate. Pirates and raiders seized opportunity. They moved with confidence, exploiting weaknesses humans had once patched quietly. Planets burned, populations fled, and entire sectors were lost. Humanity had been the shield no one had recognized. Council fleets attempted to fight back. Ships flared in the void, engines glowing bright against darkness. Coordination failed. Commands conflicted. Without human guidance, even the most advanced fleets acted with hesitation and error. Reports arrived from frontier worlds. Isolated colonies begged for help. Humans had maintained the balance that kept these colonies alive. Now, rescue came too late, if at all. Hope dwindled in the vacuum left behind. Leaders at the council admitted failure publicly for the first time. Humans had not just been participants, they had been stabilizers, protectors, and problem solvers. Their absence was not a minor inconvenience. It was a collapse in motion. In human space, life continued calmly. Children trained in engineering and tactics. Cities expanded with foresight and efficiency. Fleets drilled with precision. Humanity had survived, adapted, and grown stronger without interference from a galaxy that had once exploited them. Humans monitored the galaxy quietly. They observed the consequences of arrogance and denial, but they did not intervene. Their strength was restraint. Their silence was deliberate. The galaxy had been given lessons it ignored, now left to face reality. Council worlds struggled to hold together. Pirates pressed borders. Famine spread. Natural disasters worsened as human infrastructure, silently maintained, no longer corrected failures. The galaxy realized too late that humans had been the quiet force holding everything in balance. Civilizations began to understand humanity's choice. Humans had not abandoned life in the galaxy. They had abandoned exploitation. They acted only where necessary and no longer sacrificed themselves for arrogance or ignorance. Some planets began calling for peace, reflection, and cooperation. Messages were sent to human space, hoping for guidance or alliance. Every request met silence. Humans would act only on their terms, and not for the sake of pride or debt. Old archives revealed the depth of human contribution. Countless disasters had been averted. Countless crises solved without recognition. Humans were everywhere, fixing what no one else dared, always ahead, always prepared. As fleets failed and borders collapsed, council members faced their ultimate truth: humanity's absence was permanent. Their strength could not be replicated. Their patience, judgment, and resilience were unmatched. In human space, fleets assembled in formation. Civilian and military vessels moved with precision, anticipation, and discipline. Every movement displayed intelligence, cooperation, and foresight. Humanity thrived because it had learned to rely on itself. Human historians documented the galaxy's failures. They wrote not in anger, but in clarity. They showed what had been lost when patience, foresight, and moral judgment were ignored. The lessons were permanent, etched for the next generation. Refugees reaching human borders were welcomed with care. Lives were saved, not for reward or political gain, but because humanity understood the value of life itself. They acted morally and decisively, unlike the Council, which had failed through hubris. The Council attempted to learn, but learning is slow in the face of collapse. Ships fell, planets burned, economies crashed. The galaxy realized the humans were not simply missing, they were irreplaceable. Human engineers refined technology, scientists developed systems to detect threats, strategists trained fleets. Humanity advanced, disciplined, and united, no longer burdened by the failures of a galaxy that had once taken them for granted. In the distance, a fleet moved toward a volatile system. Humans arrived before disaster struck, stabilizing the star, repairing colonies, saving lives. They acted swiftly, not for glory, not for recognition, but because they could. The galaxy watched from afar, awe mixing with regret. Humanity had left, but in doing so, they had preserved themselves. Their endurance, intelligence, and morality outpaced every species that had once underestimated them. A young human commander looked at the stars. "We gave them warning," she said softly. "Now they must survive the lesson themselves." The statement carried centuries of foresight and restraint, the kind humans had always shown. Back on Council worlds, leaders faced the undeniable truth. Humanity's departure had not been punishment, but protection. Protection of themselves, and in many ways, protection of the galaxy from its own arrogance. Civilizations finally acknowledged human strength. They remembered the quiet wisdom, the patience, the careful intervention. They understood that humanity had been the invisible hand guiding order, saving millions and preventing catastrophe at every turn. Yet even in awe, the galaxy knew it could not demand humans' return. Their power was not theirs to command. Humanity had earned its freedom by refusing to sacrifice itself for those unwilling to learn. Human fleets continued exercises, children trained, cities thrived, and research advanced. Humans were free, united, and stronger than ever. Their departure had been a choice of survival, not defeat, and it had proven their resilience beyond doubt. The Council issued one final broadcast to all systems. It was not a command, not a demand. It was confession and acknowledgement. Humans had been essential, humans had been wise, and humans had been wronged by neglect. The galaxy could not reclaim what was lost, but it could learn. It would remember that true strength was patience, intelligence, and moral courage. Humanity had embodied these qualities quietly for centuries. In the end, humanity thrived in silence. The galaxy struggled without them. Their departure was not abandonment. It was judgment, survival, and a testament to what it meant to be truly strong. And to those watching, the story spoke clearly. Strength is measured not by the battles you fight, but by the wisdom to choose when to fight, when to save, and when to step away. Humanity had done all three, and survived where others failed. Now, the call was yours. Witness their story. Learn from it. Respect it. Humanity endures, grows, and rises beyond the stars. In the next chapter, 'tis waiting to be told, with every one of us choosing what kind of future we want to build.